My name is Nancy, 34 years old, nurse, single mom, and apparently the family disappointment. But if you step into my world for just a day, you'll understand why I call it home. The beeping of heart monitors at dawn, the sterile hum of hospital corridors. That's where my shift usually ends. I clock out just as the world is waking up, drive through a sleepy city still bathed in gray, and brace myself for my real job raising Jackson 9 and Tyler 7. Two whirlwinds of imagination and energy who fill our small apartment with laughter, chaos, and the kind of love that's louder than exhaustion. Our mornings are messy and alive. Jackson's art projects sprawl across the kitchen table like wild explosions of color, while Tyler insists on wearing his superhero cape to breakfast. I'm usually stirring oatmeal with one hand, answering work messages with the other, and pretending not to notice the toothpaste streak on the mirror. We are far from perfect, but we are real. And then there's Amelia, my sister. The family's polished mirror, flawless, reflective, and cold to the touch. She's 2 years older, a corporate attorney, married to Richard, another attorney with a voice like money. Their house, I swear, looks like it's auditioning for the cover of Architectural Digest. Everything about Amelia's life screams control: her pristine garden, her pressed linen curtains, even her daughter Sophia's ballet-perfect posture at age 10. Amelia's Instagram bio reads, "Grateful wife, devoted mother, lover of order." I can't help but wonder if she ever gets tired of pretending life has no fingerprints on it. Growing up, we were opposites in every way. Amelia was the straight-A prodigy. I was the tomboy who scraped her knees playing soccer. She basked in praise. I got labeled spirited. Mom used to say Amelia was the pride and I was the puzzle, and maybe I still am. That Sunday, the four of us, my boys, my parents, and I, were invited to Amelia's home for family dinner. I baked my boys' favorite cookies to bring along, partly to keep their hands busy, and partly to distract from the tension I always felt stepping into that polished space. Amelia's neighborhood could have been lifted straight from a lifestyle commercial. Manicured hedges, uniform driveways, and not a single squeaky gate in sight. I parked my scuffed-up sedan between two gleaming SUVs and took a deep breath. Inside, the scent of rosemary and lemon filled the air. Her dining table sparkled crystal glasses, matching napkin rings, a centerpiece of fresh lilies that looked more expensive than my grocery budget for the week. "Nancy, you're late," Amelia said, smiling that tight smile that wasn't a smile at all. "I'm 2 minutes early," I replied, trying for lightness. She ignored it. Sophia greeted us politely, as she always did, with a small, rehearsed hug. My boys grinned at her, whispering about their new Lego project. I watched Amelia's eyes narrow slightly as Tyler's shoes squeaked on the polished floor. Dinner began smoothly enough. Richard discussed some case, Dad chimed in about local politics, and Mom reminded everyone of her new book club. I focused on cutting up Tyler's roast chicken while keeping Jackson from fidgeting with the linen napkins. For a while, I thought maybe this evening will be peaceful. Maybe we'll survive without passive-aggressive comments. And then Amelia clinked her fork against her glass. As you all know, she began with that performative tone she uses for announcements. Sophia's 10th birthday is coming up next month. Her face lit up like a hostess unveiling an award-winning event. We're planning something very special, a garden party. The theme is Secret Garden, with flower crowns, a storyteller, and a string quartet. Richard's firm partners will be there along with Sophia's classmates and their parents. Mom practically clapped her hands. "Oh, that sounds lovely, dear. You always plan such elegant parties." I smiled politely. "Sounds magical, Amelia. I'm sure the kids will have fun helping with the decorations." Tyler leaned over and whispered to me, eyes bright, "Mom, can I blow up the balloons again? Like last time, I can make them into animals now?" His voice carried just enough for Amelia to hear. She paused, the corners of her mouth twitching before she smiled, thin, practiced. "Actually, Nancy," she said, her tone soft but slicing, "I wanted to talk to you about that." Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. She folded her napkin carefully before continuing. "Richard and I have been discussing the guest list, and we think it might be best if Jackson and Tyler sat this one out." At first, I thought she was joking. The room fell into stunned silence. Even the faint background music seemed to vanish. "What do you mean?" I managed, setting down my fork. Amelia sighed, as though burdened by having to explain the obvious. "This is a formal event. The firm's partners will be there, and we need everything to run smoothly. Your boys are spirited, and I worry they might feel out of place. It's not a good environment for them." Out of place, I repeated, my voice quieter than I intended. You mean not perfect enough for your garden party? Her smile didn't waver. Don't take it personally, Nancy. I just think. Think what? My tone sharpened. That my kids are too loud, too normal. Mom shifted uncomfortably. Nancy, dear, it's Amelia's event. Perhaps it's just a matter of structure, Amelia finished. You know how particular Richard's colleagues are. I'm sure you understand. Jackson froze mid-bite. Tyler's eyes went glassy. The air felt heavy, thick with humiliation. Are you seriously uninviting my children from their cousin's birthday? I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. It's not uninviting, she said sweetly. It's setting appropriate boundaries. The words hit like a slap. I looked to my parents, my supposed allies. Dad studied his plate. Mom avoided my gaze. My boys sat silently now. Jackson's fork slipped from his hand, clattering against the china. I stood up, trembling. Come on, boys. Get your jackets. Nancy, don't overreact, Amelia said, irritation creeping into her tone. This is exactly the emotional behavior that— Enough. My voice cracked. We're leaving. As we turned for the door, Sophia's small voice broke the silence. Mommy, why can't Jackson and Tyler come? I made them special invitations at school. I didn't wait for Amelia's answer. In the car, the boys were quiet. Streetlights flickered across their faces like fragments of memory. Halfway home, Tyler whispered, Mom, did we do something bad? My throat tightened. No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Some adults forget what it's like to be kids. That's not your fault. Jackson spoke next, barely audible, but Aunt Amelia said, We're a bad influence. Are we bad? That word bad shattered something in me. I pulled over into an empty parking lot, turned to face them, and said the only thing that mattered. You are not bad. You are brave, kind, and loved. Don't ever let anyone, not even family, make you think otherwise. When they finally fell asleep that night, I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the counter, tears falling soundlessly. I had always believed keeping peace in the family was the right thing to do, but peace, I realized, meant nothing if it came at the cost of my children's self-worth. Somewhere deep inside me, something shifted. A line I didn't know existed had just been crossed. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dinner table again. Amelia's cool, rehearsed expression, my parents' silence. Jackson's hand frozen in midair, and Tyler's trembling lip as he tried not to cry. The words bad influence replayed like an echo I couldn't shut off. By morning, my chest felt heavy with anger and something deeper shame. Not because of what my sister said, but because I hadn't defended my boys sooner. I'd sat there too long, hoping anyone would speak up. They didn't. And I realized I'd been waiting my entire life for this family to stand up for me. They never would. At breakfast, the apartment was unusually quiet. The cartoon theme song that usually blared while the boys ate played softly in the background, out of place in the silence. Jackson pushed his cereal around with his spoon. Tyler stared at the table. Hey, I said, forcing cheer into my voice. We've got pancakes this weekend. Maybe a movie night, too. Sound good? Tyler nodded absently. Jackson asked, Can we still give Sophia our cards? I hesitated. Maybe later, buddy. Let's give Aunt Amelia some time. He didn't answer. He just folded his napkin like Amelia always did and whispered, We can mail it. She'll like that. That small act, my son, mimicking the sister who'd just humiliated him, broke me a little more. At work, I couldn't focus. The sound of ventilators, the shuffle of nurses, the steady rhythm of beeping monitors, normally comforting, felt distant. When my coworker Diane handed me a clipboard, she frowned. Whoa, you look like you've been through a storm. What happened? Family stuff, I said. The kind that makes you wish you could legally disown people. Diane chuckled softly, then noticed my expression and sobered. It's Amelia, isn't it? She'd met my sister once at a hospital fundraiser. Amelia had shaken Diane's hand like she was interviewing her for a position she'd already decided she wasn't qualified for. She uninvited the boys from Sophia's birthday, I confessed. Said they're a bad influence. Diane's jaw dropped. She said that out loud. I nodded, in front of them, and my parents backed her up. Diane leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. You know what that is, emotional control. She's keeping the family hierarchy intact. You're supposed to stay the messy one, so she gets to be the perfect one. Her words struck too close to home. I used to think I was over all that, I said quietly. But it's like I'm still the kid at the dinner table being compared to her. She's not perfect, Nancy, Diane said. She's terrified. Perfectionists usually are. That night, after the boys went to bed, I scrolled through my phone. My family group chat, Family Connect, was lit up with notifications. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Aunt Patty. I heard about Sophia's birthday. How exciting. Sorry to hear Nancy's boys can't make it. Mom, it's for the best. They'll have their own time together later. Cousin Janet. Oh, I thought family events were for the whole family. Mom. We don't need drama, Janet. My fingers tightened around the phone. There it was, my family dissecting my children like they were a problem to be managed. I typed, "Glad to know my parenting is everyone's favorite topic," but deleted it. Instead, I turned off notifications and threw the phone onto the couch. The next morning, I overheard my boys whispering while coloring at the table. "Do you think Aunt Amelia doesn't like us?" Tyler asked. Jackson hesitated, chewing his pencil. "Maybe she just likes quiet kids better. Like Sophia. Yeah, she's perfect." "No, she's just different," I interrupted softly, forcing a smile as I entered the room. "You two are amazing, exactly as you are." Tyler looked up at me, uncertain. "But Grandma said we need to behave more like Sophia." My stomach dropped. When did Grandma say that? "She called last night. I told her we were sad about the party, and she said maybe if we learn manners better, Aunt Amelia will invite us next time." I sat down slowly. "Sweetheart, you already have great manners. You say please, thank you, sorry. You're kind. And being kind matters more than sitting still at a fancy table." Jackson frowned. "But Grandma said we embarrassed her at Thanksgiving. I didn't mean to spill my drink." "You didn't do anything wrong," my voice cracked. "Everyone spills sometimes." He studied my face, then whispered, "Then why does it feel like it's always us?" I didn't have an answer, not one that would make sense to a 9-year-old. That afternoon, Mom called. "Nancy, I heard you're upset," she began, her tone clipped. "Let's not make this bigger than it is." "Mom, my children were uninvited from their cousin's birthday," I said, pacing the kitchen. "How small should that be?" "Oh, darling, Amelia meant well. Richard's colleagues are very conservative. You know how those things are." I gritted my teeth. "You mean they wouldn't want to see normal kids playing Laughing Being Human?" "Don't be dramatic. Amelia has high standards and you always defend her," I snapped. "Do you even hear yourself? You're excusing her for humiliating your grandsons." "Nancy," Mom said sharply, "watch your tone." "I've watched my tone for 34 years, I said, voice trembling, "while Amelia gets to do whatever she wants and still be the favorite." There was a pause, heavy and cold. Then Mom said, "If you spent less time blaming others and more time setting boundaries with your boys, maybe people wouldn't judge." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, while doing dishes, I scrolled through social media. Amelia had already posted a preview of Sophia's secret garden birthday, soft lighting, pastel decor, captioned, "Creating magical memories for my sweet girl." The comments were full of praise. "You're such a perfect mom. So elegant. Your family is goals." I stared at the screen until it blurred. The perfection felt suffocating. And beneath it, something ugly, anger mixed with envy. Not envy of her life, but of how easily she controlled the narrative. Then I noticed something else, a private message from Lisa, my oldest friend. "Saw Amelia's post. She's showing off again. You okay?" "No." "Not really," I typed. "I feel like I failed my boys. They're asking if they're bad." Her reply came fast. "You didn't fail them. You're the only one protecting them. Don't let her rewrite the story." That night, lying in bed, I thought about those words, rewrite the story. Maybe that was it. Maybe I couldn't change my family, but I could change what my boys believed about themselves. I could rewrite our story. Still, the damage was spreading. The next few days brought more whispers. Aunt Patty texted, "Heard the boys had another outburst. You should look into that parenting podcast Janet mentioned." Cousin Janet followed with a friendly message about a discipline method that worked wonders. Every text felt like another tiny cut. Even at the boys' school, I caught glances from other parents. Word had traveled fast. Small-town networks always did. When Jackson came home early one afternoon, unusually quiet, I knew something was wrong. "What happened?" I asked. He shrugged, eyes fixed on his shoes. Mrs. Keller asked if everything was okay at home. She said she heard some family stuff. My chest tightened. Who told her that? He hesitated. "Mia, Aunt Patty's daughter, works in the office. She told her mom we were in trouble. Are we?" I knelt down, holding his face in my hands. "No, baby. You're not in trouble. Grown-ups say things they shouldn't sometimes. But you didn't do anything wrong. Ever." He nodded, but his eyes were full of doubt. That night, as the boys slept, I sat by their door and listened to them breathe. My phone buzzed again. More messages from Amelia, from Mom, from relatives. who'd never cared before but suddenly had advice. I turned it face down. I thought about all the times I'd bit my tongue for family peace. Every insult disguised as concern, every silent comparison, every moment I'd accepted disrespect because speaking up would cause waves. And now my sons were drowning in those same waves. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but something had shifted inside me. Peace wasn't worth the price of watching my children shrink. If Amelia wanted a perfect family picture, she could keep it. I was done playing the background role in her story. The next chapter I decided would be ours. The week that followed was a blur of tension and silence. My phone sat face down on the kitchen counter, vibrating every few hours with calls I refused to answer. I told myself I was too tired, too busy, but the truth was simpler. I couldn't bear to hear another relative tell me how to parent my sons. At the hospital, I went through the motions, checking vitals, updating charts, forcing smiles for patients. But even there, Amelia's voice haunted me. Your boys are a bad influence. Each repetition of that phrase echoed like a diagnosis I couldn't erase. By Thursday, exhaustion caught up to me. I came home to find the boys on the couch, unusually quiet, watching a muted cartoon. Jackson had drawn a tiny frown on the back of his hand with a marker. Tyler was hugging his stuffed Mickey Mouse so tightly that the seams strained. "Hey, what's with the long faces?" I asked gently. Jackson hesitated, then said, "Grandma called again." My stomach tensed. What did she say? "She asked if we're being better this week," he said, eyes down. "She said maybe Aunt Amelia will forgive us if we show we can behave." I knelt down, trying to steady my breathing. "Forgive you, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't need anyone's forgiveness for being kids." Tyler piped up. "But Grandma said maybe we can go next year if we're calmer." I forced a smile, but my throat ached. "You are wonderful exactly how you are. You hear me. You don't need to be calmer or quieter or anythinger." They nodded, but I could tell they didn't believe me. Children always sense the truth hiding behind a parent's eyes. That night, after they fell asleep, I sat on the floor beside their room, staring at the soft light of the hallway bleeding under the door. My anger, once directed at Amelia, now turned inward. I'd let my family's judgments creep into our lives, into my boys' self-image. I'd taught them that love sometimes means keeping the peace, but peace, I realized, had become poison. When my phone buzzed again, I picked it up, Mom's name flashing across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Nancy," she began, voice firm, "we need to talk about this attitude of yours." I leaned against the counter, closing my eyes. "Mom, not tonight. Please." "No, you'll listen. You're making a scene. Amelia's heartbroken that you overreacted. All she wanted was a dignified event for Sophia. You're turning this into a vendetta." I laughed bitterly. A vendetta. She humiliated my kids in front of everyone. She made a decision for her household, and you need to respect that. "I've respected her decisions my whole life," I said quietly. "Even when they hurt. Even when you and Dad let her walk all over me. But not this time." "You're being immature, Nancy," Mom said sharply. "You always have been." Something inside me snapped. I looked around my kitchen. The chipped paint, the drawings taped to the fridge, the forgotten dinner plates. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt done. "Then I guess I'll be immature," I said, and hung up. The sound of the phone hitting the counter was louder than it should have been. A sharp, decisive crack. The silence that followed felt like freedom. I sat on the floor, knees drawn up, and let the tears come. Not just for Amelia or my mother, but for every moment I'd stayed quiet to keep their love. Every time I'd apologized for being different, for being less perfect, less polished, less Amelia. Then through the blur of tears, I noticed something on the fridge, a magnet holding up a crayon drawing Jackson had made last month. 3 stick figures, him, Tyler, and me. Above them, he'd written in big, crooked letters, "Our family is magic." I smiled through the ache. Maybe our kind of magic wasn't the polished kind, but it was real. The next morning, as sunlight spilled through the blinds, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let my boys learn that love had to be earned through silence. I was going to show them that joy, real unfiltered joy, was worth fighting for. I needed a plan. At work that afternoon, my coworker Maria, our shift supervisor, caught me staring at the hospital computer, lost in thought. "Penny for your thoughts," she asked, sipping her coffee. "Just family drama," I said. "My sister uninvited my kids from a party because she thinks they're too alive." Maria chuckled softly. "Ah, the crime of being human. I've been there." I hesitated. I want to do something for them. Something to remind them they're loved no matter what. Maria's eyes softened. "Then do it. Whatever it is, make it happen." That night, scrolling through my phone after another long shift, I stumbled on an ad, Disneyland Family Package, limited time offer. The image showed two boys about the same age as mine laughing under fireworks. My breath caught. Jackson had been begging to go for years. Tyler slept every night clutching that Mickey Mouse toy. For a moment, I imagined it, the three of us wandering down Main Street, the boys' faces glowing beneath the castle lights' laughter instead of shame. Then reality kicked in. The cost, the time off work, the logistics. It felt impossible. But so had surviving nursing school as a single mom, and I'd done that. So had keeping a roof over our heads when their father walked out. I'd done that too. Maybe impossible was just another word for worth it. I opened my banking app and stared at the numbers. My modest savings, barely enough for emergencies, stared back at me. The practical voice in my head whispered, "Don't do it. That money's for car repairs, school clothes, bills." But another voice, quiet and fierce, answered, "They deserve something good, something that's just theirs." Without letting myself think too long, I clicked Book Now. The confirmation email chimed softly like a secret. The next day, I approached Maria during break. "I need to ask a favor," I said. "I know it's short notice, but I'd like to take a few days off next weekend." Her eyebrows lifted. "Next weekend? That's tight." "I know. It's for my kids. They've had a rough time, and I want to give them something special. It's all covered. I can trade shifts with Diane." She studied me for a moment, then smiled. "You're a good mom, Nancy. Go make some memories." By the end of my shift, everything was set. Diane agreed to swap days, and my vacation request was approved. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt light. I caught myself humming on the drive home. That night, I tucked the boys into bed and lingered longer than usual. Jackson mumbled in his sleep, "I'll be better next time," and it nearly broke me. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're already enough." Then I opened my laptop and started making lists. Travel snacks, outfits, surprise reveal ideas. I imagined their faces when I told them. I could already hear Tyler's squeal of excitement and Jackson's 1,000 questions about roller coasters. By midnight, I had it all mapped out: hotel itinerary, even custom t-shirts with their names. I labeled a folder, Operation Happiness. When I finally closed my laptop, I caught my reflection in the dark screen, tired eyes. Yes, but something else too. Determination. I wasn't just planning a vacation. I was reclaiming something my family had tried to take from me for years, the right to define joy on my own terms. The world could keep its perfect garden parties. We were going to Disneyland. And this time I wasn't asking for anyone's permission. The week before our secret trip felt like living a double life. By day, I was the tired nurse rushing between shifts and school pickups. By night, I was a covert planner building happiness out of spreadsheets and secrets. The boys didn't know yet. I wanted the reveal to be perfect, to replace the hurt Amelia caused with something unforgettable. But keeping a secret this big wasn't easy when you lived in a small apartment with two curious kids and one nosy family. Each night after bedtime, I'd wait until their lights were off before opening my laptop. The soft glow illuminated my to-do list. Disney t-shirts check. Snacks for the drive check. Hotel booking confirmation check. Every line I ticked off felt like taking back a piece of power I hadn't realized I'd lost. The next morning, I told my boss, Maria, that I'd finalized the dates. She grinned as she handed me the approved leave slip. "You look lighter," she said. "I am," I admitted, for the first time in a long while. I stopped at a craft store after work to buy a few surprise items: Mickey stickers, glitter pens, and a stack of envelopes. I had an idea to make little adventure tickets for the boys. Each one would reveal part of the surprise. I smiled to myself as I placed them in my basket. It felt good to create something joyful again. That night, I started packing while they were asleep. I folded tiny shirts matching denim shorts and tucked in their favorite plush toys. The rhythmic sound of zippers closing was strangely soothing. Halfway through, I caught my reflection in the mirror, hair messy, eyes shadowed, but there was a spark I hadn't seen in months. I whispered to my reflection, "We're getting out. Just us." The next morning, the phone rang while I was making breakfast. I saw Amelia's name flash on the screen. My stomach clenched, but curiosity won. I answered. "Nancy, I'm finalizing seating arrangements for Sophia's party," she said briskly. "You'll still be helping, right? I'll need you early Saturday to set up the flower arrangements." Her tone carried no irony, no recognition of the cruelty she'd shown weeks earlier. "I can't," I said simply. We have plans this weekend. A pause. What kind of plans? Just family time. Her voice sharpened. So you're skipping your niece's birthday because you're sulking. I almost laughed. You made it clear my family isn't welcome there, remember? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said, Amelia. You told me my boys were a bad influence. She sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. Nancy, don't twist things. I was just setting boundaries. You've always been too sensitive. Too sensitive. Those words landed like old bruises. I'd heard them my whole life, any time I dared to have feelings that inconvenienced someone else. I'm not being sensitive, I said quietly. I'm being done. Her silence was brief but loaded. Fine. Do whatever you want. Just don't make a scene. Wouldn't dream of it, I said, and hung up. Later that day, Mom called. Her timing, as always, was impeccable. Your sister says you're refusing to attend the party, she began without preamble. That's right. And you have other plans that weekend. Yes. What kind of plans? Important ones, I said evenly. There was a pause followed by the sigh that had raised me half disappointment, half control. Nancy, family events matter. Sophia will notice your absence. She'll also notice my kids' absence, Mom. But that didn't seem to bother anyone when you all agreed to exclude them. You're being dramatic. I'm being consistent, I replied. If we're not invited, we won't attend. Mom tried a different angle. Janet said she'd be happy to watch the boys so you can go alone. That way you can still support Amelia. The suggestion made my stomach turn. You want me to leave my children at home while I smile through the birthday party they were banned from? I asked. Do you hear how cruel that sounds? She hesitated, then said softly, You're punishing Amelia. No, Mom. I'm protecting my kids. From what? Their own family. Yes, I said, my voice shaking. Exactly that. I hung up before she could respond. My hands trembled, but beneath the adrenaline was clarity. This wasn't rebellion, it was survival. That evening, as I stirred spaghetti sauce, the boys sat at the table coloring. Tyler looked up suddenly. Mom, can I make something for Sophia anyway? Even if we can't go, I froze mid-stir. What do you mean I want to make her a card? She's still our cousin. Jackson nodded. I was thinking I could draw her as a superhero. She'd like that. Their forgiveness, so unguarded, so pure, brought tears to my eyes. That's very kind of you, I said softly. You can give it to her soon. After they went to bed, I peeked into their room. They'd fallen asleep, surrounded by colored paper glue sticks and drawings. Jackson had drawn Sophia wearing a cape that said Cousins Forever. For a moment, I just stood there, hand pressed against the doorframe, overwhelmed by how much love they still carried for people who'd hurt them. The next day at work, Diane caught me smiling while charting patient notes. What's got you grinning like you won the lottery? She asked. Let's just say I'm planning a little escape, I said. Her eyes widened. Oh no, you're doing something big, aren't you? Big enough to make my kids remember this weekend for the rest of their lives. Diane's smile softened. Good for you, Nancy. You deserve that. By Thursday, the tension between my secret and my family's expectations was almost comical. Amelia texted a list of tasks she needed help with. Mom left a voicemail reminding me to dress appropriately for the garden theme. I deleted both messages and replaced them with a to-do list titled Freedom Checklist. I spent the evening wrapping snacks, labeling suitcases, and hiding them in my closet. Every item I packed was a quiet act of defiance. Juice boxes instead of wine bottles, sneakers instead of heels, laughter instead of polite smiles. Friday morning, I decided it was time to tell the boys. They came sleepily into the kitchen, rubbing their eyes, expecting another ordinary breakfast. Instead, I served pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Tyler blinked. These are funny pancakes. I grinned. They're special pancakes. Why? Jackson asked suspiciously. I slid 2 envelopes across the table each with their names written in glitter pen. Because I have something to show you. They tore them open, revealing homemade tickets covered in Disney stickers and hand-drawn fireworks. Jackson's eyes widened. Wait, are we going to? I nodded. Pack your bags, boys. Tomorrow morning, we're going to Disneyland. For a moment, silence. Then an explosion of joy so pure it filled the room. Tyler screamed, Disneyland for real. Jackson jumped out of his chair, eyes wide mouth, open in disbelief. Are you serious? Like actual Disneyland? Actual Disneyland? I laughed, tears spilling before I could stop them. Just the 3 of us, a whole weekend. They threw their arms around me, their excitement vibrating through my bones. You're the best mom ever, Tyler yelled into my shoulder. No, I whispered, holding them tight. You're the best boys ever. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the packed suitcases lined neatly by the door. For the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something right. My phone buzzed again, a late-night text from Amelia. Amelia. Mom says you're taking the boys on some kind of trip instead of coming to the party. Is that true, Amelia? I hope you realize how hurtful that is to Sophia. I read the messages twice, then placed my phone face down. Tomorrow would not be about hurt feelings or family hierarchies. Tomorrow would be about magic laughter and healing. For once, I wasn't going to let anyone rewrite our story. At dawn, I woke the boys gently. Time to go, I whispered. They scrambled out of bed, half asleep, but grinning, clutching their backpacks like treasure. The sky outside was still gray, the world quiet and unaware. As we drove away, our small car cutting through the early morning fog, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw their faces lit with anticipation, free of fear. For the first time in years, I realized something simple and powerful. Family isn't defined by who invites you in. It's defined by who never lets you feel left out. We were leaving judgment behind. We were driving toward joy. The sky was still painted in shades of lavender and gray when we hit the road. The boys were in their pajamas, hair, mussed from sleep faces glowing with anticipation. Tyler clutched his worn Mickey plush, and Jackson kept checking the map app on my phone like a co-pilot on a secret mission. Mom, Tyler whispered, voice thick with awe, "Are we really going to Disneyland?" Like, the real one? The real one, I confirmed. Every roller coaster, every castle, every churro. He grinned so hard his eyes nearly disappeared. Best day ever. The highway stretched ahead empty and endless, lined with fog that looked like smoke from a dream. Music filled the car, Disney soundtracks of course, and every lyric felt like a declaration of rebellion. Let it go indeed. As the sun climbed higher, the tension that had sat like a stone in my chest began to melt. For the first time in months, I wasn't replaying Amelia's cutting words or my mother's sighs. I was just driving. Free. By the time we reached Anaheim, the boys were practically bouncing in their seats. Look, Jackson shouted, pointing out the window. The castle. I can see the castle. I smiled. You sure can. We parked loaded backpacks and took the tram toward the entrance. The moment our tickets scanned, something in me shifted. It was like crossing a threshold between two worlds, the one where I kept shrinking to fit and the one where I finally let myself expand. Main Street, USA unfolded before us in a blur of color and nostalgia. Music floated through the air, soft brass and laughter, and the boys froze in wonder. Tyler grabbed my hand, eyes wide. It's even better than the pictures. Jackson tilted his head back, soaking in the sight of the castle towering in the distance. It's like walking inside a dream, he whispered. For once, I didn't have to tell them to use their inside voices. Their joy was the only sound that mattered. We rode Dumbo first. Tyler screamed the entire time, equal parts fear and delight, while Jackson pretended to be a pilot saving the kingdom from dragons. Then came Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, where Tyler discovered he had surprisingly sharp aim and shouted pew 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 at every turn. At lunch, we sat on a bench eating corn dogs, their faces sticky with mustard and laughter. Jackson leaned back against me. Mom, this is the best day of my life. Best day. It hit me like sunlight through clouds, how simple joy could heal wounds that years of apologies never touched. Later in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, I noticed a little girl ahead of us drop her popcorn. Without hesitation, Jackson knelt and helped her scoop it up. Here, he said kindly. You can have some of mine. The girl smiled shyly, her mother thanking him. Watching him, I thought, This is who my sister called undisciplined. By mid-afternoon, we'd conquered half the park. My feet ached, my hair was frizzy, but I couldn't remember the last time I felt this alive. The boys posed with goofy high-five Captain America and ate ice cream so fast it melted down their wrists. And then somewhere between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of them. Faces glowing, Mickey ears, slightly crooked, castle shimmering behind them. I hesitated for a moment before posting it on Instagram. Day 1 of our surprise Disney adventure, making memories with my 2 favorite people in the world. #choose joy, #family. First, #Disney magic. It wasn't meant as a statement, it was just truth. But within minutes, notifications started flooding in. Lisa commented first. Yes, this is the energy you deserve. Then Diane. Look at those smiles, proud of you, Mama. And finally, my mother. This seems sudden. Hope you're being responsible. There it was, the guilt grenade disguised as concern. I ignored it. For once, I refused to let her voice take up space in my joy. Still a flicker of unease passed through me. I knew Amelia would see the post, knew she'd be furious, but for the first time in years, I didn't care. By late afternoon, we were soaked from Splash Mountain. The boys had begged to sit in the front, and when the wave hit, their laughter echoed so loudly that even strangers joined in. As we walked hand in hand, a photographer asked if we wanted a family picture. I almost declined old habits, but then I nodded. He positioned us in front of the castle. Big smiles, he said. And we did smile. Genuine, uninhibited, no perfection required. I posted that one too with the caption, "Some people chase approval, we're chasing magic. Hatch family over fear." That was the post that changed everything. Because while I was standing in line for Peter Pan's flight, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Dozens of notifications, messages, missed calls. Amelia, Mom, even Dad. The first message was from Amelia. "Are you kidding me, Nancy? During Sophia's birthday, how could you be this selfish?" I locked my phone and shoved it into my bag. Not today. When the ride began, we soared through the air in our tiny ship stars, twinkling London glowing beneath us. Tyler's hand found mine, his voice breathless. "Mom, we're flying." "Yes, baby," I whispered. "We are." That night, we ate dinner at a restaurant where princesses visited each table. Tyler, who'd declared earlier that princesses are boring, went speechless when Belle complimented his smile. Jackson asked Ariel a dozen questions about ocean ecosystems until she laughed and said, "You'd get along great with Sebastian." We ended the night watching fireworks over the castle. The air was cool, the crowd buzzing with shared wonder. Jackson climbed onto the railing to see better, his silhouette framed against the explosions of color. Tyler leaned his head against my shoulder. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm glad we didn't go to the party." I smiled through tears. "Me too, sweetheart." The fireworks painted the sky in gold and red. For a fleeting moment, it felt like the universe was applauding us for choosing joy over judgment, for daring to be happy in our own imperfect way. When we finally returned to the hotel, the boys were asleep before I could even tuck them in. Their cheeks were pink, their hair damp from the evening mist, their faces peaceful. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through the day's photos. Each image felt like proof that I was finally breaking free, not just from Amelia's control, but from years of trying to fit inside someone else's version of good enough. There were 27 missed calls waiting. But for once, I didn't feel the urge to respond. Instead, I set my phone aside, pulled the curtain open, and looked out at the glowing castle in the distance. For years, I'd told my boys bedtime stories about heroes who stood up to monsters. I'd never realized that sometimes the monsters wore pearls and smiled at dinner tables. And sometimes the hero was a tired mom who finally decided her children deserved the world. As the fireworks faded, I whispered to myself, "This is how you rewrite the story." By the time the second morning of our Disney escape arrived, my phone was a battlefield. 43 missed calls, 37 messages, 10 voicemails that began politely and ended in fury. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I turned my phone face down on the hotel nightstand and opened the curtains. Outside, the sky blushed pink over the Sleeping Beauty castle. The boys stirred under their blankets, their Mickey ears still on from the night before. "Morning, explorers," I said softly. Jackson sat up first, rubbing his eyes. "Do we get to go to the other park today?" "You bet," I said. "California Adventure is waiting." Tyler grinned. "Do they have churros there too?" "Even better," I said. "They have roller coasters that make you scream until you forget mean people exist." We spent the morning running from ride to ride, Guardians of the Galaxy Incredicoaster, and the Ferris wheel that made Tyler pretend to be brave. Their laughter was contagious, pure, and whole. Every squeal of joy felt like an antidote to the poison of Amelia's perfectionism. But while we soared, the rest of the family was imploding. Somewhere across the city, under a floral archway, and the watchful eyes of Richard's law firm, Amelia's perfect secret garden party had begun. The string quartet played, champagne glasses clinked, and yet every adult there was glued to their phone whispering. Because my Disney post, the one with my boys beaming beneath the castle, had exploded. Friends, cousins, coworkers, even old classmates were liking, sharing. commenting, "So, what a beautiful way to make memories. This mom gets it, choosing joy over approval. Real love. Fake perfection." The timing, of course, was poetic. My photo had gone up just as Amelia's first guests arrived. Her attempt at control was cracking, and I didn't even need to be there to see it. While she smiled through gritted teeth, pretending not to care, her phone vibrated nonstop on the dessert table. Guests whispered, "Did you see Nancy's pictures? Looks like her boys are having the time of their lives. Aren't those the nephews who weren't invited?" Even Richard, ever the diplomat, noticed the murmurs. He excused himself from conversation, jaw tight. "You told me she wasn't coming," he hissed quietly. "I didn't think she'd broadcast it," Amelia whispered back, her composure trembling. Sophia, standing nearby in her pale blue dress, overheard. Her big brown eyes dimmed. "Mommy," she said softly, "why didn't Jackson and Tyler come? You said they didn't want to." Amelia froze. Around them, the perfect party blurred into noise. "We'll talk about it later, sweetheart. But they're at Disneyland," Sophia said. "They look so happy." It was the first crack in Amelia's armor, and it went straight through her heart. Meanwhile, at Disneyland, I had no idea any of that was happening. We were sitting at a small cafe near Pixar Pier, eating caramel popcorn and laughing about how Tyler had screamed, "I'm too small for this," halfway through Guardians of the Galaxy. Jackson leaned over the table. "Mom, do you think Aunt Amelia is mad at us?" I smiled gently. "Probably, but that's not your worry." "But she'll be mad at you," he said. "That's okay," I replied. "I can handle it." He tilted his head. "You're not scared anymore, are you?" That stopped me. "What makes you say that?" "Because you used to look nervous every time your phone rang. Now you just smile." His words cut deep because he was right. I had been scared of Amelia, scared of Mom's judgment, Dad's disappointment, the whispers behind every family dinner. But fear had no place here, not in the land of fireworks and laughter. "I guess I'm done being scared," I said softly. At 2:00 p.m., the moment Amelia's party hit full swing, we stood in front of Sleeping Beauty's castle again. I asked a kind stranger to take a photo of the three of us, matching shirts, sunlit faces, nothing posed or perfect about it. When I posted it, I hesitated only a second before typing the caption. "Creating magical memories with the two best boys any mom could ask for. Sometimes joy looks like saying no to what hurts you. Hashtag choose joy. Family over fear." Perfectly. Imperfect. It took less than 5 minutes for my notifications to explode again. "Lisa Legend behavior. You're teaching those boys everything that matters. Diane." This made me cry at work. Aunt Patty. "The boys look so happy. Maybe we've been too hard on you. Cousin Janet proud of you, Nancy." Seriously. And then inevitably, Mom. "Sophia saw your post. She's in tears. Amelia is devastated. How could you be so deliberately hurtful?" The irony almost made me laugh. They'd spent weeks telling me my children were too wild, too much, too wrong, and now they were crying because they'd seen what unconditional love looked like. I turned off notifications again. Let them talk. The afternoon went by in a haze of sunlight and laughter. We met Spider-Man, ate Mickey-shaped pretzels, and watched the Pixar parade. Tyler waved so hard at Woody that his hat fell off. Jackson kept repeating, "I can't believe this is real." By the time night fell, the park glowed under 1,000 fairy lights. We found a spot near the water for the World of Color show. The music swelled, fountains danced, and colors painted the night sky. As the boys leaned against me, eyes wide, I felt the tears come again. But this time, they weren't from sadness. They were from relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving my family. I was living my life. But back at the party, Amelia's perfect facade was crumbling in real time. After Sophia's teary question, she'd excused herself to the restroom, locked the door, and stared at her reflection. Her lipstick was perfect, but her eyes were rimmed red. She opened Instagram and scrolled through my photos post after post of my boys, laughing, smiling free. Her stomach twisted with something she couldn't name. Envy, regret, fear. Her phone buzzed messages from Mom, from Richard, from guests asking if the boys were really banned. She wanted to throw the phone into the sink. When she finally stepped back out, she found Sophia sitting under the dessert table, her tiara discarded frosting smeared across her cheeks. "I don't like this party," Sophia said quietly. "It's not fun," Amelia's voice cracked. "But honey, everyone's having such a good time." Sophia shook her head. "Jackson and Tyler would have made it fun." And just like that, Amelia's carefully crafted illusion shattered. That night after the fireworks, when the boys finally fell asleep in the hotel room, I sat on the balcony, scrolling through messages again. Mom's words were predictably sharp. "You've embarrassed the family. Your sister was humiliated." Sophia cried for hours. But between the anger, there were other messages, unexpected ones. "Cousin Janet again. Nancy, honestly, you did what any good mom would do. Don't feel guilty for protecting your kids. Even my father had texted, 'Call me when you get home. We need to talk. Privately.'" For years, I'd felt like the black sheep, the failure, the woman whose chaos disrupted everyone else's peace. But now, people were seeing the truth. Maybe the problem had never been my chaos, it was their need for control. I stared out at the glowing castle and whispered, "Let them talk." Back in her spotless house, Amelia sat awake long after the last guest left. Richard had gone to bed. Sophia was asleep, clutching a half-melted balloon. The silence was heavy. On her phone, my latest photo glowed on the screen, me and the boys laughing. Her thumb hovered over the report post button before she stopped herself. She zoomed in on their smiles instead. Something inside her, something small and long buried, shifted. She set the phone down and whispered to the empty room, "Maybe she's not the problem." Across the city in our hotel room, I checked on my boys one last time. They were sprawled across the bed, their faces peaceful, the glow of the castle's fireworks reflecting faintly through the window. I brushed a strand of hair from Jackson's forehead and whispered, "No one will ever make you feel small again, I promise." Then I turned out the lights, letting the hum of distant laughter and music fill the quiet. For the first time, peace didn't feel like silence. It felt like freedom. The morning after we returned from Disneyland, I woke up to a phone lighting up like a warning flare. 42 missed calls, 60 unread messages, even one voicemail from Dad. Something I hadn't seen since before the fallout. But the first sound I heard that morning wasn't the phone. It was laughter. Jackson and Tyler were in the kitchen arguing over who got the last Mickey waffle, still wearing their matching Disney shirts. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching the glitter on the souvenirs they'd brought home. Their happiness filled every inch of our small apartment, drowning out the static of everything else. I stood there for a long time just watching them. Their innocence. Their ease. Then I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and started scrolling through the messages. "Mom, your behavior was inappropriate, Nancy. You overshadowed Sophia's day completely. Dad, call me when you're ready to have a civil discussion. Amelia, you've gone too far this time." Sophia sent from Amelia's phone, "Where are you?" "I miss my cousins." That last one hit me hardest. I could picture her small face, probably still confused about why her cousins weren't there, why the adults she trusted had turned something as simple as a birthday into a battlefield. I didn't reply to anyone, not yet. Instead, I poured coffee, listened to my son's chatter, and decided that whatever came next, I would face it on my terms. By afternoon, the quiet ended. The knock at my door was sharp, 3 quick raps, impatient and deliberate. I didn't even have to check the peephole. I knew that knock. I opened the door to find Amelia standing in her pristine white blouse and pearl earrings. Though her hair was frizzed at the edges, a small telling crack in her usual perfection. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She pushed past me into the apartment like a storm breaking through glass. "Do you have any idea," she started, voice tight, "what kind of embarrassment you've caused?" "Good morning to you, too," I said flatly, closing the door behind her. "Coffee." "Don't you dare make jokes right now, Nancy. Then say what you came to say." She turned to face me, eyes blazing. "You deliberately sabotaged Sophia's birthday. Do you know what it looked like? While I was hosting guests, showing them the perfect event, Richard's firm helped sponsor your photos started circulating everywhere. Every single guest saw them. They were asking why my nephews were at Disneyland instead of my daughter's party. Maybe because her mother uninvited them," I said coolly. "That is not the point." "It's exactly the point, Amelia." I interrupted the words sharper than I intended. "You excluded my boys, and then you're shocked that we found our own happiness. What did you expect us to do? Sit home and cry?" "You weaponized social media," she snapped. "You humiliated me in front of Richard's partners. Do you even understand what that could mean for his career?" I blinked, stunned. "You're really making this about his career?" "It's not just his career. It's our reputation. You turned our private family disagreement into a public spectacle." I laughed, though it came out bitter. "A spectacle, Amelia. You made it a spectacle the minute you called my children a bad influence at a dinner table full of relatives. You didn't just exclude them. You branded them as a problem." She flinched, but quickly recovered. "I didn't say they were a problem. I said they lacked discipline. That's the same thing to you, isn't it? Anything that doesn't fit your perfect picture is a flaw that needs fixing. We stood there, two sisters on opposite ends of a lifelong war. The air between us felt charged, like years of swallowed words were finally clawing their way out. You have no idea the pressure I'm under, Amelia said, her tone trembling for the first time. Do you think perfection just happens? It takes effort, discipline. I built this life from scratch, and what I demanded, chose a different one that isn't picture perfect but real. You talk about discipline, Amelia, but what you've really built is a cage, and you keep mistaking control for love. Her voice cracked. That's not fair. What's not fair, I said, stepping closer, is that you hurt children to protect your image. You made my boys feel like they were less than, and you knew exactly what you were doing. Her eyes darted toward the hallway. Where are they? In their room, I said, playing. Are they mad at me? She asked the question so unexpectedly small that it almost softened me. Before I could answer, Tyler's voice came from the hallway. Mom, is Aunt Amelia here? I turned to see both boys standing there barefoot, hesitant eyes wide. Yeah, honey, I said gently. Why don't you say hi? They approached slowly. Amelia crouched down, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. Hi, Tyler, she said softly. Hi, Jackson. They didn't answer. Jackson looked at me first, uncertain. Amelia swallowed. I heard you went to Disneyland. Jackson nodded. We did. Did you have fun? He hesitated. Yeah. Then quieter. We wish Sophia was there. That hit her harder than any accusation I could have thrown. Her eyes glistened. She wished that too, she said softly. She cried when she saw your pictures. Tyler frowned, but she didn't invite us. Amelia's face crumpled for a split second before she pulled herself together. That was my decision, not hers. And it was wrong. That admission, so rare, so uncharacteristic, hung in the air like something fragile. She stood slowly brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. May I talk to you privately? I nodded and gestured toward the kitchen. The boys retreated, whispering. Amelia leaned against the counter, exhaling shakily. Sophia told me something after the party, she said. She said she didn't even want the garden party. She wanted a sleepover with her cousins and some of her friends from ballet. But I thought she'd be proud if I made it grand. She didn't need grand, I said quietly. She needed love. Amelia pressed her hands to her eyes. Do you know how many people have told me this week that I should be more like you? They said your photos showed what real family looks like. Richard's colleagues, wives, people. I wanted to impress, told me your boys looked happier than any of the children at our party. I stayed silent. I wanted to be perfect, she whispered, but I ended up being cruel. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. Finally, I said, Amelia, I don't need perfection from you. I never did. But my boys need to know their family is a safe place. They need to know they belong. She nodded, eyes glassy. You're right. Then softer, I never wanted to hurt them. I just didn't know how to handle anything that wasn't perfect. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Dad. I put it on speaker. Hi, Dad. His deep voice filled the room. Is your sister there? Yes, I said carefully. He sighed. A sound heavy with years of silence. Good. You two need to hear this. Your mother and I have been talking. We should have spoken up when Amelia decided to exclude the boys. We knew it was wrong. We said nothing. That was cowardly. Amelia looked stunned. Dad. No, Amelia. Let me finish. You both are my daughters. But Nancy, I owe you an apology. Your kids are good boys. Spirited, yes, but kind. We let our fear of conflict blind us to fairness. That ends now. For a moment, all I could do was blink. Dad never apologized. Ever. Thank you, I said finally, my voice unsteady. That means more than you know. After a brief silence, Dad said, You don't have to fix this today. Just don't let pride be the reason this family stays broken. When the call ended, Amelia's expression had softened into something I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, tired, human, vulnerable. She grabbed her purse but lingered at the doorway. Sophia keeps asking to see the boys, she said quietly. Maybe they could come over this weekend. We could start again? I hesitated, then nodded. They'd like that. Amelia smiled faintly. Nancy, she said, voice trembling. For what it's worth, they looked happy in those pictures. You're a good mom. I let out a long breath. And you're a good sister. You just forget you don't have to prove it all the time. She gave a small, tearful laugh, then left. When I turned around, the boys were standing in the hallway again. Is everything okay? Jackson asked. It will be, I said. Sometimes people mess up, but they can try again. Tyler hugged me. Like when we spilled the orange juice, I smiled. Exactly like that. As they ran off to play, I leaned against the doorframe, exhaustion and relief washing over me. The storm had passed, and for the first time, it didn't feel like the end of something, it felt like the start. 2 days after Amelia's visit, the air around our family felt eerily still, like the quiet after a long storm, when you're not sure if it's truly over or just catching its breath. There were no more angry calls, no guilt-ridden texts from Mom, no barbed remarks disguised as advice. It was silence, but a heavy one, the kind that makes you wonder what's being said behind closed doors. I spent that week doing something simple living, making pancakes shaped like Mickey ears, walking the boys to school, sleeping deeply for the first time in months. But even in peace, I could feel the edges of something unfinished. So when I got a text from Amelia on Friday, "Can you and the boys come by Sunday afternoon? Sophia has something for them." I knew this wasn't just about the children. It was about the truth. Her house looked different when we arrived. Not physically, it was still spotless, still scented faintly of lemon polish, but the energy had changed. The perfection felt fragile, as if one honest word could collapse it. Amelia met us at the door. She wasn't wearing her usual heels or pearls, just jeans, a cardigan, and bare feet. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. It startled me more than any argument could have. Sophia came running from the living room, squealing Jackson Tyler, before throwing herself into their arms. They toppled together in a pile of laughter, a tangle of limbs and joy. Watching them, something inside me eased. "Come in," Amelia said quietly. Sophia's been excited. We followed her to the kitchen table where a half-finished puzzle lay scattered across the surface. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her house in the middle of doing something. Usually everything here existed in the after cleaning, after organizing, after being approved for display. The difference was small, but it mattered. The kids ran off to the backyard, their laughter drifting through the open window. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of them playing filled the silence with something warm. Then Amelia broke it. "She kept the invitations," she said, her voice soft. I turned to her. "What invitations?" Amelia crossed the kitchen, opened a drawer, and pulled out a stack of pink envelopes. My heart sank when I recognized the handwriting, Sophia's looping, careful print. Each one decorated with stickers and glitter. One had "to Jackson" scrawled across it, another "to Tyler." "She made these before I told her they couldn't come," Amelia said, her voice trembling. "She hid them in her desk. I found them 2 days ago when I was helping her with homework." I picked one up, tracing the uneven heart drawn in crayon. Inside was a small note. "Dear Jackson and Tyler, please come to my secret garden party. I promise it won't be boring. Love, Sophia." My chest tightened. She really wanted them there. "She did," Amelia whispered. And I took that from her. I told myself it was for the best, that she'd thank me later when she saw how perfect the party was. But she cried when I told her you weren't coming. I told her your boys were too wild for that kind of event. Her voice broke on the last words. She looked at me like I'd said something awful. And I did. I stayed silent, letting her talk. "I was so desperate to keep everything together," she continued. "To keep Richard's colleagues impressed, to keep our parents proud. But all I did was tear things apart. Sophia told me yesterday she doesn't like being perfect anymore. She said it's too much homework for her heart." Her eyes filled with tears. "She's 10, Nancy. 10, and already feels trapped in an image I built." I exhaled slowly. "Amelia, the truth is I understand. You grew up in the same house I did. Perfection was currency. You just took the lesson harder than I did." Amelia laughed wetly, shaking her head. "You always made it look so easy. You never cared what people thought." "That's not true," I said. "I cared too much. I just learned the hard way that caring doesn't change anything. People like Mom will always find something to judge. I just stopped giving them the satisfaction." She leaned against the counter. Arms folded, eyes glassy. "Do you think I can stop too?" I hesitated. "If you really want to." She gave a faint smile. "Sophia's already helping me. She asked if she could have a messy play date next weekend. Paint, slime, the works." I said yes before I even realized what that meant. I chuckled. "That's progress." "More like penance," she murmured. Then, after a pause, she said, "Nancy, do you hate me?" The question hit harder than I expected. "No," I said truthfully. "I don't hate you. I was angry, furious even. But hate, no, because I think you're trying." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I was so cruel to you. I've replayed that dinner over and over. The way I said bad influence like they weren't even people. I see it now. It wasn't about your boys. It was about me." I know, I said gently. And you've said more in the last 10 minutes than you have in 10 years. That's something. She smiled through tears. Richard said the same thing. He told me last night he was proud of me for apologizing, that he'd rather people saw us as real than as perfect. That's a good man, I said. Her expression softened. He is. And so are you. Before I could respond, Sophia's voice called from the yard. Mom, Aunt Nancy. Come see. We stepped outside to find the kids building a fort out of bed sheets and chairs, their hands streaked with grass and mud. Amelia gasped, not in horror, but in astonishment. My backyard, she whispered. It's filthy. Then Sophia turned toward her eyes bright. Isn't it great? Amelia's laugh was shaky, but real. It's perfect. She crouched down beside them, helping tie a knot in one of the sheets. Her white cardigan brushed the grass, leaving a faint green stain. For once she didn't even glance at it. I stood there watching her. The same sister who once screamed when someone touched her marble counter, kneeling in the dirt, laughing with her daughter and nephews. The sound was raw, unpolished, beautiful. That night, as I tucked the boys into bed, Jackson looked up at me and said, Aunt Amelia looked different today. How so? I asked. She looked happy. I smiled. Yeah, she did. He thought for a moment. Do you think she'll let us come to Sophia's next birthday? I think she'll ask you what kind of party she should have first. Tyler yawned, already half asleep. Can it be a mud party? I laughed. If anyone can convince her, it's you. Later, as I sat alone on the couch, scrolling through my phone, I noticed a notification. Amelia had posted a photo. It was of Sophia and the boys in their backyard. Fort's smiling faces, smudged hair wild. Her caption read, Sometimes the best memories come with grass stains. Here's to imperfection and to second chances. I didn't cry, but I felt something deeper than tears, something that felt like healing. For the first time in years, Amelia's world didn't look flawless. It looked alive. It started with a single text from Dad. Dinner, Sunday, our house, 6 p.m., everyone invited. No emojis, no context, no hint of tone. Just those clipped sentences that sounded more like a court summons than an invitation. I stared at the message for a long time before showing it to the boys. Tyler squinted at it. Are we in trouble? Jackson frowned. Or is it like a peace dinner? Maybe both, I said with a sigh. But we'll go. Sometimes you have to show up, even when you're not sure what you're walking into. When Sunday came, I found myself smoothing my dress 3 times before stepping out of the car. Old habits die hard. I caught my reflection in the window and forced a smile that said, You're ready. The boys ran ahead, holding the small bouquet we'd picked up on the way daisies for Grandma because Tyler said they looked like happy sons. Amelia's car was already in the driveway. That told me 2 things. She was early as always. This wasn't going to be easy. When we walked through the front door, the smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread hit me a scent that carried decades of family dinners both joyful and unbearable. Nancy, you're here, Mom's voice called from the kitchen. She emerged wiping her hands on an apron. Her hair was pinned just so, her lipstick immaculate. Some things never changed. But her eyes. There was softness there I hadn't seen in years. Hi, Mom, I said carefully. She hesitated for half a second before pulling me into a hug. It wasn't her usual light, polite embrace. It was warm, solid, human. Hi, my loves, she said as the boys came in. Oh, you've grown since Disneyland. Jackson grinned. It's only been a month, Grandma. Well, she said, smiling, maybe I just see you differently now. Her words lingered in the air. Maybe she didn't even realize how true they were. Amelia appeared from the dining room arranging silverware. She looked calmer than I'd ever seen her, still composed, but her usual armor of control was gone. No pearls, no perfection, just simplicity. She smiled when she saw us. Hey, you made it. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, and meant it. Dinner started quietly. Dad carved the chicken while Mom passed around potatoes, her hands shaking slightly. The boys filled the silence with stories about school, about Tyler's art project, and Jackson's science fair volcano that almost exploded the garage. To my surprise, Amelia laughed genuinely. That's so you, Jackson, she said, always turning chaos into creativity. He blushed, grinning. Mom says that's a compliment. It is, Amelia said softly. It was strange watching them all together again without tension filling the room. Strange, but good. Then, halfway through dessert, Dad set down his fork. We need to talk, he said simply. Amelia and I exchanged wary glances. Mom took a deep breath, her hands clasped in her lap. Your father and I, We've done a lot of thinking these past few weeks. About you girls. About how we've handled things over the years. Handled, I echoed carefully. She nodded. We've compared you your whole lives, praised Amelia for being the model child, and criticized you for being different. We called it guidance, but it was judgment. The admission stunned me. My throat tightened. Amelia looked equally floored. Mom. Dad continued, his voice rough. It was easier to praise what we understood. Amelia's order made sense to us. It looked safe. But Nancy, your chaos, that scared us. We mistook independence for rebellion. We didn't see it was strength. I blinked hard, the words sinking in like sunlight through frost. Mom's eyes glistened. When Amelia told us what happened with the birthday party, we realized how much harm that pattern caused. You tried so hard to keep the peace, and we made you feel like peace was only possible if you changed who you were. Her lip trembled. We're sorry, Nancy. The apology hung in the air, heavy, fragile, real. I swallowed hard. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. Beside me, Amelia shifted in her seat. I need to say something too, she said. She turned toward me, eyes wet. Nancy, I've spent so much of my life trying to be the favorite. I thought perfection was love. I didn't realize it was just fear wearing pearls. Her voice cracked. When Sophia said she wanted to be more like your boys, I saw what I'd done. I made her believe that being perfect was the only way to be loved. The same way Mom made us believe it. Her gaze met mine. You were right. I was cruel, but I want to do better. I reached across the table and took her hand. You already are. The boys watched silently, their eyes wide, sensing the gravity of the moment. Tyler whispered, Are we all friends again? Everyone laughed, a watery, shaky laugh that broke the tension. Yes, sweetheart, Mom said, reaching to squeeze his hand. We're all friends again. After dinner, the adults lingered at the table while the kids played in the backyard. Through the window, I could see them chasing fireflies, Sophia in the middle, her dress grass-stained and her laughter free. Dad poured coffee, his expression thoughtful. You know, he said I saw those Disneyland pictures the day you posted them. I braced myself. I bet you weren't thrilled. He chuckled softly. Actually, I was proud. You made a statement without saying a word. You showed your boys what love looks like when it's brave. It reminded me of your mother when she was young. Mom swatted him lightly. Oh, stop, she said, blushing. But she smiled a real one, unguarded. Amelia leaned back in her chair, exhaling. I've started seeing a therapist, she said suddenly, trying to unlearn all this. The need to control the anxiety about appearances. It's slow, but it's helping. That's good, I said, surprised and impressed. Really good. She smiled faintly. I even let Sophia host her first messy art party last weekend. There was paint on the walls, frosting on the ceiling. I didn't scream once. We all laughed. Maybe we should take a family photo, Mom said after a while, her voice tentative but hopeful. The word photo used to trigger anxiety. Amelia adjusting angles, Mom barking instructions, everyone pretending. But this time something was different. We gathered in the backyard, the twilight wrapping us in gold. The kids lined up in front, still holding fireflies in their hands. I stood next to Amelia, and for the first time I didn't feel smaller. Ready, Dad said, setting the timer. Wait, Amelia said, placing an arm around my shoulder. No filters. Just us. The shutter clicked. When I looked at the photo later, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, honesty. The lines on Mom's face. The smudge of dirt on Sophia's knee. The way Jackson leaned into me, trusting. And Amelia smiling without perfection. That night, as I tucked the boys into bed, Jackson said, Mom, does this mean Grandma and Aunt Amelia aren't mad anymore? No, I said gently. It means we learned to stop being mad at the wrong things. Tyler yawned. So, happy ending. Not an ending, I said, kissing his forehead. Just a new chapter. Later, as I scrolled through my phone, I saw Amelia had posted the family photo. Her caption read, Not perfect, but real. And that's better. The likes rolled in fast, but for once that didn't matter. I set my phone down, leaned back on the couch, and let out a breath that felt like years of armor falling away. Our family wasn't flawless, it never would be, but maybe, just maybe, it was finally whole. A year later, on a sun-drenched afternoon that smelled of cut grass and fresh lemonade, I found myself standing in my parents' backyard again. Only this time it wasn't for an apology dinner or another forced gathering. It was for Sophia's 11th birthday, and there was nothing secret garden about it. The backyard looked like a riot of color balloons, tangled in tree branches. Picnic blankets strewn across the lawn tables, covered in finger paints, glitter glue, and melting cupcakes. Kids ran barefoot, shrieking with laughter. Someone's dog chased a soccer ball into the flower bed. It was chaos. Beautiful, liberating chaos. I stood at the edge of it all, holding a glass of lemonade, watching my sister kneel beside a table where Jackson and Tyler were helping Sophia and two of her friends make paper crowns. Amelia's once pristine cardigan was splattered with blue paint, her hair escaping its ponytail. And she was smiling. Not the photo-ready tight-lipped smile she used to perfect for Instagram, but a real one, wide and alive. "Mom, can we make slime next?" Sophia shouted, waving a dripping paintbrush. "Absolutely not in the house," Amelia replied, then laughed when a glob of glitter hit her arm. "Fine, outside only." I caught her eye across the yard. She raised an eyebrow at me in mock despair, then mouthed, "Help me." I laughed. The sight of her covered in color was better than any speech about change could ever be. As the kids darted toward the next activity, I joined Amelia at the table. She exhaled dramatically, wiping her hands on a paper towel that only made the paint smear worse. "Remember last year," she said, "when I paid a planner $2,000 to make sure no child touched the tablecloth?" I smiled. "Now you've got permanent glitter in your lawn." "And I love it," she admitted, shaking her head. "Who even am I?" "You're becoming yourself," I said quietly. She glanced at me, her expression soft. "You know, I still think about that day. The day you took the boys to Disneyland." "Do you regret it?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I think it saved us." I blinked, caught off guard. "It forced me to look at what I was doing," she continued. "To see that the life I was so busy curating wasn't really living. You gave your boys magic that weekend. And in a strange way, you gave me permission to stop pretending." Her voice caught on the last word. I reached over and squeezed her paint-stained hand. "You gave yourself permission," I corrected gently. "You just needed a reason." Later, when the sun began to dip, Dad lit the grill while Mom handed out paper plates. The old rolls were still there, but lighter now, less performance, more presence. "Nancy, taste this potato salad," Mom said. "I used that recipe you gave me." I took a bite and smiled. "You didn't substitute the mayo for Greek yogurt this time." She laughed. "I'm learning to stop fixing things that aren't broken." It was such a simple sentence, but it hit me deep. For years, fixing had been her way of loving. Only now she was realizing love doesn't always mean correction. After dinner, as twilight stretched across the yard, Amelia brought out the birthday cake. It wasn't a three-tiered masterpiece from a famous bakery. It was homemade, slightly lopsided, frosted by the kids themselves with uneven layers of pink and white. Sophia's eyes sparkled as everyone sang. Jackson and Tyler harmonized off-key on purpose, making her giggle so hard she almost forgot to blow out the candles. "Make a wish," I called. She closed her eyes, hands clasped, and blew. When she looked up, she whispered, "I wished we could all stay like this forever." I felt my throat tighten. Later that evening, as the kids ran off to chase fireflies, I found Mom sitting on the porch swing. She patted the spot beside her. "I still think about how close we came to losing all this," she said softly. "Yeah," I murmured. "It's strange, isn't it? How one small thing, a birthday party, can shake an entire family. Or fix it," she said, smiling faintly, "depending on how you look at it." We sat in silence for a while, the kind that feels full instead of empty. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "You were right about Amelia, about yourself, about everything." I turned to her. "That's new." She chuckled. "Don't push your luck. But truly your strength, Nancy, it saved us all. You made me see that love isn't tidy. It's loud and messy and sometimes inconvenient. But it's real." Her words settled into me like sunlight through clouds. As darkness fell, Amelia joined us on the porch with a glass of wine and her daughter curled up in her lap. "Do you remember," she said quietly, "when I told you your boys were a bad influence?" I nodded. "I was wrong," she continued. "They weren't bad influences. They were free ones." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. "Freedom's contagious." She laughed softly. "Yeah. Turns out perfection was just a cage with better furniture." Inside the house, I found Jackson sitting at the piano, the same one our parents used to make us practice on as kids. His fingers brushed the keys tentatively, the melody uncertain but tender. Tyler sat beside him, humming along. I leaned against the doorway, listening. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the murmur of family and the faint scent of birthday cake, it struck me we'd all been rewritten. The roles we were born into, golden child, black sheep, critical parent, had finally loosened their grip. We were no longer acting out inherited scripts. We were creating something new. And it all began with a single act of defiance, choosing joy over judgment. As the night ended and goodbyes were exchanged, Amelia hugged me tightly. Next year, she whispered, we're doing a joint birthday. Sophia wants to go to Disneyland with the boys. I laughed. Full circle. She smiled. Exactly. I watched her drive away, Sophia, singing loudly in the back seat, the headlights cutting through the dark. When I turned back toward my parents' porch, I caught my reflection in the window. Tired, yes, but peaceful. Whole. I thought of the story that had started it all, the humiliation, the pain, the anger, the quiet courage it took to say no more. And then I smiled because I finally understood the truth I'd been teaching my boys all along. Happiness isn't about who invites you. It's about who you choose to celebrate with. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is buy the tickets, pack the bags, and drive straight toward your own version of magic. As the porch light flickered, I whispered to the night, to my younger self, to every mother who'd ever been told she wasn't enough. You were never too much. They just weren't ready for your kind of light. The wind carried laughter from the yard, and I closed my eyes, breathing in the sound. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive in silence. Sometimes it comes dressed in color, laughter, and a little bit of glitter that never quite washes away.